Chapter 26. Daughter of Fury, Frances, Saint. The spectacular crack-up of the beautiful, sensitive, and highly strung actress Frances Farmer supplied another real-life movie-land drama which in 1943 competed with the Chaplin-Berry fracas and a little thing like World War II for headlines and papers throughout the country. In 1935, after she had won a magazine popularity contest, Paramount snapped up the new Garbo for a 7-year contract. Frances, who was considered herself a serious actress and dreamed of appearing in Chekhov and the classics, she later did work for a spell with the group theater in New York, starring in Golden Boy and The Fifth Column, working with Elia Kazan and Clifford Odets. She found herself cast by the studio opposite Bing Crosby in Rhythm on the Range, side by side with Martha Raye and Bob Burns and his bazooka. She was loaned out to Goldwyn. Paramount made a large profit on such loan-outs, not a penny of it going to Frances, for a customer. Come and get it. Then followed Son of Fury with Tyrone Power, Ebb Tide with Ray Milland, The Toast of New York with Cary Grant, and her most curious film, Among the Living with Albert Dekker. The would-be method actress was then thrust into South of Pago Pago with John Hall. Frances won no more popularity contest while in Southern California. A resolute individualist who refused to go Hollywood, she was often quoted as saying she hated everything about the place except the money. She made an enemy of Zucker and other moguls, and when her time of trouble came in 1943, many felt it was a case of a smart aleck getting her deserved comeuppance. Her breakdown was triggered by a banal incident, an arrest for a minor traffic violation in Santa Monica, the night of October 19, 1942. She was charged with drunk driving without a license and with having her lights out, or with having her lights on, in a dim-out zone on the Pacific Coast Highway. Frances was a cop-hater. From this moment on, the fuzz became her personal, externalized demons. She responded to the patrolman's arrogance and insults with the equal hostility, and the shouting match ended with her being dragged off to the Santa Monica jail. In night court, she was sentenced to 180 days and put on probation. If ever a damsel in distress needed the services of a Jerry Geisler, Farmer was she. Not too long after, she was arrested at Hollywood's Knickerbocker Hotel for having failed to report to her parole officer. This came on the heels of a hysterical fling, during which she dislocated her studio hairdresser's jaw, lost her sweater in a boozy nightclub brawl, and streaked topless through traffic down Sunset Strip. The police revved up her paranoia by loudly beating on her door, then entering with a passkey with a gun and handcuffs at the ready. She hid in the bathroom. The cops broke down the bathroom door and, after a wild struggle, carted her off naked through the Knickerbocker lobby. At Hollywood Police Headquarters, the officers got a jolt when the new Garbo signed cocksucker as her occupation. In court for sentencing, she stared at the mob of photographers gathered around her and spat out, "Rats, rats, rats." When the judge asked how she had lost her sweater in the nightclub brawl, she denied any knowledge of the affair. When His Honor asked her about the extent of her drinking, she replied, her voice rising, "Listen, I put liquor in my milk. I put liquor in my coffee and in my orange juice. What do you want me to do, starve to death? I drink everything I can get, including Benzedrine." Beat-faced Judge Hickson was no kindly Judge Hardy. He rose from his chair and belched out the 180-day sentence. "Fine," Frances shouted back at him, adding, "Have you ever had a broken heart?" She was referring to her unpleasant affair with Clifford Odets and her recent divorce from Leif Erikson. She then tossed an ink pot at His Honor's head with stunning accuracy. Her request to make a phone call on leaving the courtroom was unreasonably refused. This provoked Frances to swing at a police matron and floor a policeman. She was carried to her cell in a straitjacket. No help was forthcoming from her current employer, Monogram Pictures. By then, Frances had skidded from her pinnacle of Paramount to the nadir of Poverty Row. Monogram hastened to replace Frances with Mary Bryan as the lead in No Escape. She desperately needed professional help. None was forthcoming. Instead, her mortal enemy, her nemesis from the past, piped up. Her mother, Mrs. Lillian V. Farmer, who had never wanted a child, as a side note, told reporters in Seattle that her daughter's difficulties were only a publicity stunt designed to give her some real experience in the clink. They might be planning a picture for her with jail scenes in it. This way she can give a performance based on actual experience. Mama lovingly blurted out. Dear Mama Farmer, she seems to have crawled out of some very grim fairy tales, mind you, wiggled her fat ass down to Hollywood, declared her daughter a mental incompetent, and signed the commitment papers. She blamed Frances's nervous breakdown on world communism. Frances had refused to accept work detail in prison. From there, she was now shoved into a private sanitarium to face the grueling prospect of daily insulin shock treatments for 3 months, a treatment which has since been thoroughly discredited. After the horrors of the sanitarium, 10 years of utter hell in the snake pit lay ahead. She was judged insane in 1944 and confined to the state loony bin at Steilacoom, Washington, her home state, be it ever so humble. Her confinement there was the most gruesome ordeal any screen personality was ever forced to endure, the most unbearably tragic of all Hollywood tragedies. She had been unhappy in the purgatory of Hollywood, where her talent felt constricted by silly, superficial roles in dopey movies. Her merciless stars delivered her unto the hell of straitjackets, leather straps, and raping, sadistic bull-dyke guardian devils. Come and get it, indeed. Her downfall brought forth little compassion in the glamour town which had exploited her. She had been a difficult troublemaker, and they were glad to be rid of her. William Wyler once went on record as saying, "The nicest thing I can say about Frances Farmer is that she is unbearable," and to boot, she had been a pinko. One single columnist spoke up in her behalf. That was John Rosenfield, and at the time of her initial arrest, what happened to Frances Farmer shouldn't have happened at all. Just when the movie industry is winning the public's admiration, Hollywood breaks out in a rash of petty scandals. It is not a tribute to a part of the press that some of these episodes have been played well beyond their merits as news. It was the lesser part of sagacity that the industry permitted some of these affairs to get out of hand. The Frances Farmer incident should never have happened. This unusually gifted actress was no threat against law and order or the public safety. Something that began as merely a traffic reprimand grew into a case of personal violence, a serious charge, and a jail sentence. And all because a sensitive, high-strung girl was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Miss Farmer, who was no prodigy of emotional stability or sound business management, needed a lawyer one happy night last winter. A helping hand might have extradited her immediately from nothing more than a traffic violation. The terrible truth is that she stood alone and lost. Rosenfield's was the only note of compassion. The rest of the press coverage followed the lethal lead of Lolly Parsons, who snickered, "Hollywood's Cinderella girl has gone back to the ashes of a liquor-slicked highway." Okay, to be honest, that's a pretty good line. Genius and madness compose Janus-faced creativity. Of all the Hollywood Magdalenes who have drunk at the well of madness, Clara Bow, Gail Russell, Gene Tierney, we nominate as their patron, Frances, Saint. That is the end of this chapter.